Mm-hmm.
You don't want to tell us who you think's less partisan, do you?
But the thing of it is that I really do believe it should be changed because, I have to tell you, I'm disappointed that we couldn't get it done because this was really the best opportunity. Nobody knows who's going to win the majority on the apportionment board as of today, and as I tried to as I tried to persuade my colleagues on both sides of the aisle on this, I know that I know that you'd like to be in charge. And I know that you'd like to be in charge, but isn't the idea that you could win on the basis of your talents and how hard you work and what your ideas are, and that from General Assembly to General Assembly, it could switch back and forth based on the mood of the people, and that you wouldn't have to worry about being condemned to the minority for basically a decade if you lose this process. I mean, isn't getting half of a loaf better than getting nothing at all? And I think that the majority of people agreed, but not 3/5 of the majority of them agreed.
What was their biggest hang-up? I mean, Senate Republicans especially. What was their
Senate
biggest
Republicans? Senate Republicans voted to pass it. Okay, we passed my Senate resolution, but I couldn't get one vote from Democrats in the Senate. And to her, at least I appreciate the honest answer, because Caprice Cafaro, the Senate Minority Leader, was one of the few people that basically just told me, John, there is no reform that you can do. I like this. I like the present system, and I don't think it needs to be changed, and I don't have confidence that any of these plans are any better than what we have. That's what she told me. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not directly quoting her. I disagreed with her, but at least she was honest with me about her objections to it. A lot of other people, pretended like they first of all, they didn't like the politics in it, so I made an appointed board rather than an elected board, and then they said, well, then that board is not accountable to the public. We need to, I mean, no matter what you change, the people that don't want to see this change will make up an excuse. I just said, look, let the people decide this, because only inside Capitol Square do people think that this is a good system. No one outside of Capitol Square, outside of partisans and maybe county party chairmen, really think that the idea that we should draw districts on a partisan basis based on the elections of the Secretary of State, the Auditor, and the Governor, and that should be the system we operate under for 10 years is a good idea.
Even some of the party chairmen don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, a lot of them don't.
Yeah, all right.
A lot of them don't.
You said enhance economic growth and job creation. I'm just curious as to how you think Ohio is poised right now in its ability to be competitive in bringing businesses into the state, not just from the area that you would touch in your new position, but just in general as well.
Just in general. Well, obviously, I think the evidence of where we are economically says that we're not where we need to be. And we're in no position right now to either raise taxes on businesses or people more, because the taxes are high enough in terms of I think, driving them out of the state. And we're not going to have the resources to be able to somehow create the next new program that somehow we're going to incentivize businesses to come here. Where our assets are is I think we have good, honest, hardworking people here. I think we have a good workforce. I think it's largely educated, although we can improve upon that, particularly in the STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But if I were to give advice to the governor's candidates about what they need to do to put Ohio in a position to prosper economically going forward, I would tell them, govern responsibly. And here's what I mean by that. Because there are a lot of states like California and Illinois and many others that are in really, really desperate shape financially. And as Ohio, if we can just step up in the first 6 months of next year and fill the budget hole, and try to do it by building consensus and minimize any efforts to generate new revenue to do it, but make the tough decisions. And I'm not going to tell you that I know exactly how to do that, but we got to make those tough decisions and put ourselves in the first 6 months on a road to fiscal stability. All right? Then tackle the pension problems that we have in the state. We have 3 of 5 pension funds that are actuarially unsound. It's going to become a noose around our neck eventually. Tackle those and make the tough decisions that it's going to take to ensure that those issues are sound going forward. Also, take the same steps to the extent that we need to on unemployment compensation to get that under control. Okay, I know those don't sound sexy, but you know what? Responsibility right now is really going to be valued at a premium. And when companies in this state and outside of this state see our elected officials taking responsible steps to solve these problems in the short term, not allow them to become burdens in the long term, they look at Ohio versus these other places and they see a picture of emerging stability versus other states where they see a picture of emerging chaos. And if we do that, I think we're going to be a place where capital will seek, capital in a storm, capital seeks, refuge in calm waters. And I think that that's what Ohio can be. And that would be my recommendation about how we improve ourselves economically going forward.
Good answer, thank you.
We have time for about one more.
In 2000 and 2004, primarily I think because the election was so close in Ohio, presidential and referring to, excuse me, Ohio's electoral system came under a lot of scrutiny. Do you think that it was more of a perception or just kind of a witch hunt, or was it fair?
I think it was both. I think that that people in leadership roles didn't do enough to try to create calm and stability, but I also think that it's become a tactic of presidential campaigns to try to motivate their base to talk about all the quote injustices that are occurring in the elections process in whatever state they're worried about people not turning out. And third, I think that there were some people that acted aggressively irresponsible, like Acorn and others, who just pay people to come in to, they're not from Ohio. A lot of these problems in Ohio are not caused by people from Ohio. They're caused by people from outside of Ohio that are paid to come in here to try to persuade, to try to win presidential elections. And if we can do what I'm talking about, get the buy-in up front, help people, help minimize the late in the process decisions that need to be made overall. Because if you don't have to make late decisions, no one can question them. And be a voice of reason, and be mature, and don't be political, and understand that you have a larger responsibility other than to your partisan interest, but to the people. And if you can use those as your guiding principles, no matter what things are thrown at you, I think that at the end of the day, you do Ohio and our elections justice, and you do yourself justice, because people will see you as a voice of reason.
One follow-up question. You mentioned being partisan. Obviously, you are elected as a Republican. Do you think that it is ethical for a Secretary of State to be involved in a presidential election campaign?
I don't know if I would use the term ethical, as somehow it would be unethical to be involved in the campaign.
So I'm using it.
But I think it's unwise, and it's something I won't do.
One just follow-up question on your way out here. One of the candidates for governor indicates has made a stance on taxation, which includes the estate tax. 70% of the states in the United States don't have an estate tax because they want to preserve capital within their state. I assume that's the conclusion they came to when they changed that. When Taft was governor and you were speaker, you had Republican control of all branches, and yet you failed to address that. Was it because you decided that the estate tax was something good to keep, or why didn't you address that issue?
Actually, we had a bill in the House that we were working on to try to eliminate the estate tax. I think Larry Wolpert's legislation was the one that I remember most specifically. The problem you have with eliminating it in the legislature among Republicans and Democrats is that many of them are local elected officials who come from a background, because the revenue from this, 80% of it goes to local government. And I proposed a compromise, which I still think is the basis of a really good idea to move forward with this. Take the 20% that the state gets and eliminate that right off the top. Raise the threshold to something that we can build some consensus on. And then give the local governments the ability to eliminate or reduce the rest of it. And then that way, within Ohio, you could have a township or a local community who says, you know what, we're going to become a refuge. We don't want to be a place where we tax. We're not going to rely on that. And if people move here, then they will be without the estate tax. And I think that takes away our responsibility in state government from passing along a burden, a financial burden to the local government that we are not addressing by taking away, a big chunk of their revenue. But at the same time, creating.
You had a Republican governor and Republican House and Senate. Why couldn't you get that?
My recollection of that conversation that we had was that we just had so many people that were part of local government that did not want to do it. And so when you have, understand it, when you have 45 Democrats or whatever it was that were against it, and a dozen Republicans that are against it because of their ties to local government, it just was a very difficult, we just never really found the votes to be able to do it. But I do really think that what I just described to you is the foundation for a compromise that would allow Ohio to put itself in a better position on this issue without doing direct harm to local governments. And that way,
it's hard to have capital to invest if you chase it all out of the state.
Howard Metzenbaum left Ohio. Is there any greater evidence that it's a bad tax? And I really think that I really hope, and I've talked with the people, with Americans for Prosperity and others, and even the local township association, the municipal league, and people like that. And I said, look, this is what you should do. Eliminate it in Ohio and eliminate the state portion of it and allow local governments to eliminate it themselves, because you'd have local governments that would do that.
Interesting compromise.
Okay, we're at time.
Thank you.